Hello and good morning everyone. This is Sheetal and you're watching Hitbullseye. So today in your verbal class, or let's say the verbal section, I am going to discuss one very important question type with you. So we are all aware that CAT is soon approaching and reading comprehension is going to be one of the major parts of this exam. Though there are no direct vocabulary or grammar question in the CAT exam, then how is it so tricky or difficult? It is mostly tricky because of tricky questions from reading comprehension section. So if I have to divide the question types into two categories from comprehension section, the first is direct kind of questions, which are directly based on the facts given in the passage. And when you are trying to answer that question, you can easily trace it back in the passage. The second type is critical reasoning types of question. So all those questions that may ask you the main idea of the author, the main argument that is presented in the passage, the option you should go with which supports the passage, or what option weakens the or criticizes the passage. All these questions are under critical reasoning, in which you not just have to passively read the passage, you have to engage with the passage. The understanding of it should go all along. So first thing first, how to approach a passage. You are supposed to read the passage in groups, I would say. You can divide, you can structure the passage in 3 areas or in 3 paragraphs, and just focus on one area when you're reading it. Do not worry about or do not regress back to the ideas that probably you read in the first paragraph and now you are on the third one. By doing this, you will be losing your focus. So try to look at the passage from bird's eye view and see, if I structure it, what do I get important from it? There is a lot of information in passages. Not everything is relevant. So how to do speed reading and understanding also? You have to do it by focusing more on the important, or let's say the keywords or the phrases. You can ignore, preposition and conjunction because they would not add much to the passage. The words that you should be focusing on are the nouns and the adjectives that are used for those nouns, because adjectives give you a hint of author's tone, author's mood towards the topic. So either he would be criticizing something or favoring something, or it can be a neutral kind of passage, a descriptive kind of passage wherein he is simply giving you information and facts. This keen understanding should be there if you want to excel in the comprehension section. With this, let's start our series of reading comprehension questions. I will first discuss the question type that can be there, and then we will take up one type in each and every class. Today's class, I'll be taking up critical reasoning question. The next class, we will discuss some tone and some words used for tone and some tone questions. Without any further ado, let's begin. So how to solve the trickiest question in comprehension? Before that, we should understand what are the question types in comprehension. The first is main idea of the passage. Main idea is the gist or the focus of the passage. By giving you so much of information and so many examples, author is trying to stress upon something. You need to identify what is that thing he is stressing upon. Even today I have included one passage here. We are going to solve it together, and I'll show you how so much of information is much less relevant and what is the relevant information in that passage which gives you the main idea or central idea or primary idea of the passage. Inference question. This also comes under the category of CR. Inference is a kind of hidden conclusion that you deduce from the passage. So first thing is, what is author implying? When author is implying something, that's a kind of conclusion which is probably explicitly given to you in the passage. The second type is, what did you deduce from the passage, or what did you infer from the passage? That will be a conclusion that you have drawn from the passage by logically understanding it. Next is vocabulary based question. They may pick a word from the passage and ask you its antonym or synonym, or probably similar meaning, or simply the meaning of that word. So when you get a question on vocabulary from comprehension, you're supposed to find out the intended meaning, the contextual meaning. When we Google meaning of any word, we get multiple results. But in one kind of comprehension, it has some particular meaning over there. So you need to find out the intended meaning for vocabulary question from RCs. Tone of the passage. Tone is mood of the author. Tone of the passage is tone of the author. How is he treating his subject? Is he favoring it, criticizing it, or simply being neutral? Then you may have direct question, the two categories I was talking about, based on the facts given in the passage. Title of the passage. Now title also gives you some hint about what you are going to read about, but it's different from main idea. Main idea is much more elaborate. Title will simply introduce you to the idea you're going to read about. But what are you going to read about? That will be in main idea, not in title. So title can be kind of a phrase, some 4-5 word, which simply gives you an idea of what is the subject going to be about. And the last is reasoning based questions, the critical reasoning question that I am going to discuss with you at length in today's session. Now, if any one of you, if you have any doubt, feel free to ask that and write it in the chat box. Okay, so reasoning based question, let's first of all understand what are these questions. In this type, question can be asked in the following ways. Which of the following will strengthen or weaken the author's argument? Now, how can cat people make it more difficult? They may say which of the following option undermines author's belief or underscores, let's say, author's belief. Underscore is strengthening or highlighting. Undermine is challenging. So you should know this kind of words that are used. So your vocabulary should be good enough to first understand the question. Only then you will move on to the option. Author is least likely or most likely to agree or disagree with. This type of question are critical reasoning question. So the verdict here is, without understanding the main idea, we cannot solve these questions. So understanding the main idea is one of the most important things here. You can make it a habit whenever you're reading something. Let's say you're reading an article or newspaper editorial. Always justify it in your own words in 3-4 sentences. Ask yourself, can I write down the gist of this thing that I've just studied in 2-3 lines? And that will be your main idea. So make it a habit when you're practicing or you're reading for your CAT preparation. Right, so now we have a passage. It's quite a lengthy one. I'll quickly read the passage for you and I'm gonna give you a few seconds. You may click a screenshot or you may pause the video and read it on your own as well. And have patience and try to solve this passage because there are some very interesting and tricky questions coming your way, and you will learn in this class how to deal with those questions, how to eliminate the wrong choices. So I'm going to give you a few seconds if you want to, pause the video and then I'll read it for you. Yes, hello to everyone who's there in the live chat. Right, so let's read the passage now. More and more companies, government agencies, educational institutions and philanthropic organizations are today in the grip of new phenomena, matrix fixation. Do you see it's in inverted commas? So this is very important. So we are going to take out so much of important information from the first paragraph itself. Remember, we are going to read it in structures and I'll keep on highlighting the important words, keywords here. So he first talked about all the institution, companies and philanthropic organization. They all focus on one phenomena, which is matrix fixation. Let's understand what is this. The key components of matrix fixation are the belief that it is possible and desirable to replace professional judgment acquired through personal experience and talent with the numerical indicators of comparative performance based upon standardized data or metrics. And that the best way to motivate people within the organization is by attaching rewards and penalties to their measured performance by numbers. So this is what he has asked here. He's saying that people are according to their results, they are either rewarded or penalties are charged from them. Very easy, first paragraph. Let's see the second one. The rewards can be monetary in the form of pay for performance, say, or reputational in the form of college ranking, hospital. Now he is simply giving you example of these matrices. So first is college ranking, next is hospital rating, surgical report cards, and so on. So further discussing the same idea. But the most dramatic negative effect, do you see, I told you adjectives are very important, but shows a contrast, and now author is going to give his idea, and he's going to talk about the negative effects of metrics fixation. Negative effect of metric fixation is its propensity to incentivize gaming, that is, encouraging professional to maximize the metrics in ways that are at odds with the large purpose of the organization. So they do not focus on the large purpose, the, let's say, long time goal. So they just focus on the maximization or by different ways in the present, just for the present task. If the rate of major crimes in district becomes the metrics according to which police officers are promoted, then some officers will respond by simply not recording crimes or downgrading them from major offences of misdemeanor. So first example that author has taken now is of police officer. Now imagine this. If we start promoting police officers on the basis of the number of crimes that are reported, they would not report each and every crime, which seemingly will show people that, oh, in this particular area, the crime rate is so low. On the basis of that, they'll have promotions. So that is ethically wrong, right? Or take the case of surgeons. Now he's taking another example. When the metrics of success and failure are made public, affecting their reputation and also income. If people are told about the doctors that how many success rates of surgery they have, how many failed attempts have they had, people will be influenced by that. It will affect their, not just their reputation, but also income. Some surgeons will improve their metric scores by refusing to operate on patient with more complex problems, whose surgical outcomes are most likely to be negative. So they would simply refuse to admit any patient who is in a critical situation. Why would they want to risk their metrics? Why would they want to risk their ratings, right? So who suffers? The patient who don't get operated upon is the one who suffers here. So did you see, we have just read 2 paragraphs and there is nothing that was so difficult. In the first one, we are simply introduced to the idea of what metrics fixation is and how everyone is accepting it. In the second paragraph, author goes on to give us 2 examples, one of police officer, the second of the surgeons, to show us that matrix fixation is not enough and it's ethically wrong also. Okay, so I think this is the last one. Okay, the second last. When reward is tied to measured performance, metrics fixation invites just this sort of gaming. But metrics fixation also leads to a variety of more subtle, unintended negative consequences. These include goal displacement, which comes in many varieties. When performance is judged by a few measures and the stakes are high, people focus on satisfying those measures, often at the expense of the other, more important organizational goals that are not measured. So those were the intended negative effects of metrics fixation. But sometimes, let's say in any corporate, in any company, the employers the employees are under such pressure of performance that they would try to meet the short term goal without thinking about what is good for the company in long term. The best known example is teaching to the test, a widespread phenomenon that has distorted primary and secondary education in the United States since the adoption of the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001. Now he's taken example of United States and how they relied on scores in primary and in secondary school under this act, No Child Left Behind Act. So let us see what kind of negative effects is he going to talk about this policy. So short-termism is another negative. So this becomes our keyword, important word. Measured performance encourages what the US sociologist Robert K. Merton in 1936 called the imperious immediacy of the interests, the immediate interest, where the actor's paramount concern with the foreseen immediate consequences excludes consideration of further or other consequences. So what is he saying here? Robert K. Merton has said that we focus on the immediate goals, because of which we do not consider or we exclude the consideration of the further other consequences. And now the last paragraph. In short, advancing short-term goal at the expense of long-range consideration, this problem is endemic to publicly traded corporations that sacrifice long-term research and development and the development of their staff to the perceived imperatives of quarterly report. So they focus on the quarterly report. Let's do what is at the hand at present. And they suffer that they do not look for long-range consideration. To the debit side of the ledger must also be added the transactional cost of metrics, the expenditure of employee time by those tasked with compiling and processing the metrics in the first place, not to mention the time required to actually read them. So, okay, we read the first two paragraphs. I kind of told you the gist of the two. Let us now discuss the gist of last two paragraphs. In the second last paragraph, he's just taken example of education system in US and he has talked about No Child Left Behind Act, which mandates it that students should be ranked and their scores should be checked. So author has criticized that also. Then he has moved on to one more idea that long-term consideration are nowhere. We are focusing on quarterly goals. People are forced to do that in corporate. And by the end, he has now added one more point, which is that no one is considering how time consuming and it drains you of all the energy when you have to compile so much of data, and there should be then people sitting and assessing all that data, all those metrics. So this is something we don't focus on. One more weakness, or you can say one more negative effect of metrics fixation. So this was the paragraph for you. Seemingly a lengthy paragraph, but if we talk about the important lines that we can take from every paragraph, this is reduced to just 4-5 lines. So the whole passage talked about metrics fixation and its negative effects with some examples. I hope now that the whole paragraph is clear to you, you'll be better able to do the questions. The first question is right in front of you. Let us see how many of you are going to answer this. So everyone who's there in the class, go through the question and try to answer it. Try to test yourself and your understanding through the questions. Right, so let me read it for you. Of the following, which would have added the least depth to the author's argument? What was author's argument? His argument was against metrics fixation through various examples. Now, this is called a critical reasoning question. You will not find answer of this question in the passage. Only if you have understood the gist and the main idea of whole paragraph, you can answer it. Let's read all the options. We just have to see which would add least depth or which would not help author's argument to progress. A comparative case study of metrics and non-metrics based evaluation and its impact on the main goal of an organization. Oh yes, that would in some way that would definitely help the organization. If you try to do a case study of metrics and non-metrics evaluation, you will get to know which one is better. It will help the company to decide they should be going with without metrics or with metrics. Second is more real life illustrations of the consequences of employees and professional gaming metrics based performance measurement system. Now, how are CAT questions tricky? This is how they make it tricky. Now, this option is not wrong. I am not saying that this doesn't add up to author's argument. But author in his paragraph has already discussed 3-4 examples of companies and schools who have adopted metrics fixation and how they've suffered. He's discussed police, he's discussed surgeon, how they suffer because of metrics fixation. So now if you add more real life illustration, that would be very redundant. So if author have to add something to the passage, he would try to keep it he would try to bring in a novel idea that makes his argument strong. He's already discussed so many real life examples and illustration. So adding more example would not do anything much. It will just make the passage lengthy, the argument lengthy. So this is our right answer, that this will add least depth. Let us see more option to make it sure that second is the answer. An analysis of the reason why metrics fixation is becoming popular despite its drawbacks. If you were the author and if you added a kind of analysis that when we know metrics fixation is not good, why are so many companies relying on it? That would add another argument to the passage. Right, so this was not done by the author, so this would definitely add something to the argument. Assessment of the pros and cons of a professional judgment-based evaluation system. If you discuss pros and cons in the passage, that would again help you to further reinforce the idea that metrics fixation should not be there. That, see, we are showing you the cons of it. So this is the only thing that has already been discussed at length in passage. So now if you add more real life illustration, it would not, build further argument. So second is the answer for this one. Let's see the other question. Next question. Try to answer these questions on your own. Try to test yourself. Answers can be wrong, that is perfectly fine. But you should, make some effort towards understanding this. I'll give you a few seconds, everyone. Go through the question and drop in your answers in the chat box. So the question is, which of the following is not a consequence of metrics fixation phenomena mentioned in the passage? So when it is given like this, mentioned in the passage, there can be, consequences, or there cannot be some consequences of metrics fixation, which you generally know. But now you have to just rely on the passage. The question is, that out of these options, which was not mentioned in the passage as a consequence of metrics fixation? तो इनमें से कौन सा ऑप्शन जो है वो पैसेज में दिया नहीं था as a consequence of metrics fixation? Improving cooperation among employees leading to increased organizational effectiveness in the long run. So did he talk about this? This idea was nowhere in the passage. This is not a consequence of metrics fixation. If you are trying to improve cooperation between the employees and you're focusing on the long-term goals, then that would not be, a short-term metrics fixation. And this thing was not discussed in the passage as a consequence of metrics fixation. Metrics fixation, on the other hand, is always related to short-termism, not long-termism, right? So this is the right answer here. Finding a way to show better results without actually improving performance. Yes, that was a bad effect of metrics fixation that was discussed in the passage. deviating from organizationally important objective to measurable yet less important objective. Oh, this is also a weakness of metrics fixation, that they rely on measurable results. Short-term orientation induced by frequent measurement of performance. Yes, that is also one factor or effect of metrics fixation that was discussed in the passage, that these results, they are short-term based. So this is the kind of, keywords that should highlight in front of your eyes when you're reading the option. Short-termism, and second is deviating from organizational important objective. This was also discussed. Finding a way to show better result without actually improving performance. Yes, this was also given, that they just focus on the result. They don't focus on what people are learning, what kind of analysis they've done. So it's only the cooperation among the employees, the friendly relation, interpersonal relation, and long-term goal. This is something that is not a consequence of metrics fixation, according to author, according to passage. I hope this question is clear. Let us take up another question. So everyone who's attending the class today, I know that probably you must be feeling that these questions are really tricky, all the option choices, they're very vague or something like that. But I have picked this passage on purpose to make you realize how important it is to practice difficult passages, because this is the kind of passages you get in CAT exam also. So you can say it's a reality check, and it's never too late to start. With practice, you can excel it. I have seen students coming from science background still managing to do reading comprehension and verbal ability in a wonderful way. All that comes from practice and giving mocks, which is very important. So let's read the third question now. All of the following can be a possible feature of No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 except. So when this act came in existence, let's say, when this act was released or sanctioned, you can say, No Child Left Behind, which idea do you think they did not consider in their mind while implying this particular act? Now obviously, if there is education system of any country, it would not consider the weaknesses or the negative effects of any kind of policy and then bring it into existence, right? So they would only think about the good things that can help you. So when you are dealing with this question and these options, try to find out one point which was not on the mind of the educationist when they actually started using no child policy in the schools of US, schools of America. So let's start reading from the first one. Standardized test scores can be critical in determining a student's educational future. Do you see that? It is so positive in tone. It is so pro of this act that these people thought that if we have standardized score, it will help us to analyze and assess what kind of educational future is this kid going to have. And that is the reason they actually went with this act, right? So this is a good point. This is definitely something that was there in their mind. School funding and sanctions are tied to yearly improvement shown on the test. Okay, that is also right. So if the school can show that, look at this is the percent of students who have scored above 90%, that would improve their reputation, and there will be more sanctions and funds for the school, that the school is doing really wonderfully, performing wonderful things in education, helping students and all that. So yes, this is also something they would have thought in mind. Good point. Assessment is dependent on the teacher's subjective evaluation of a student's class participation. Now this point, if we go with the third one, it shatters the whole concept and phenomena of metrics fixation being a good thing. How can it be? Okay, so the teachers are the one that give you marks, that would do checking of your papers, and that would give you internal assessments. What if the teachers are biased? What if their checking is subjective? Then your whole grading system, it fails. Your metrics fixation, it fails, right? So because this is a weakness of metrics fixation or grading or scoring, this is something they would have not assumed. If this idea was there in their mind, they would have not gone with this, scoring system. The focus is more on test taking skills than on higher order thinking and problem solving. Now this, I would say, is a close contender to third one. But it's possible that they were focused more on test taking. They believe that taking test would help us rather than getting to analyze what critical thinking the students have. So it is only third one which is strongly against or strong weakness of No Child Left Behind Act. So that is the reason we're going to go with the third one. Now these were the 3 questions. If you struggled with these questions, watch the video again and try to solve these questions on your own. I'll be coming up with another live very soon where I will discuss the other areas with you, other questions with you. So stay tuned if you want to excel, if you want to learn, and if you want to crack this year's CAT. So that's all for today. Now if you have any queries, feel free to put it in the chat box. I am all ears, and then we shall be wrapping the session for today. If there is anything you people want to ask, any query, put it in the chat box. Yes, so anything that you would want me to come up with, any area of the verbal section that you are struggling with, let me know. We can customize the sessions. We can come up with those topics which you want me to teach you and the way you people want to do it. Thank you, Kitty. Thank you so much. Pleasure is all mine. Anything, any question, guys? Now see, I know a lot of students find they find reading comprehension as very monotonous and boring and draining. But you have to understand this, that in future no one is going to ask you to keep on giving tests on reading comprehension. It is just for your MBA entrance exam that you have to do it. So we can't be that selfish, and we can practice these questions for these few months when you're practicing it. And actually it will turn out that you'll see that these are actually very interesting, and you get to know a lot of information, a lot of things from different subject area. It makes you more knowledgeable. Also, it helps you to hone your speaking skills, your knowledge, your vocabulary. That will help you with the interview round as well. Alright, so I think let's consider it a wrap for today. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay tuned if you want to have more such important content with us. Thank you, and do not forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.